I'm Jeff Allen, and welcome to this special series of podcasts called Knightline 79 Rewind. Last summer and into the beginning of the 2020 season, I interviewed several folks that were involved with UCF's first football team in 1979 for the Knightline podcast in honor of 40 years of UCF football. While nostalgia continues to be front and center while we wait for the resumption of college football, we thought we would bring these interviews back as their own podcast so that we could relive these great memories once again. Hillary Arena was a student manager for the first UCF football team and was also heavily involved in coordinating the reunion of the first team that was honored before the UConn game last season. We'll hear her recollections on the 79 team right after this.
Hello, Knight fans. It's Roger, a.k.a. Night Bengal, and I'm excited to announce that I'll be joining you and Andrew Phegley in writing the long-awaited next chapter of UCF's first podcast, Knightline. I'm ecstatic to share the latest news with you weekly as our Knights win on the field, on the court, and in the classroom. Remember to tune in starting August 10th for the best news and content on your favorite coast-to-coast podcast, Reboot. That's right, Knightline 3.0 will be returning to the airwaves wherever you choose to download our podcast. Charge on!
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Knightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
And now, our Knightline 79 Rewind conversation with student manager Hillary Arena. Hillary, thank you for taking the time to join us to talk about the first football team at UCF in 1979. So, if you would, tell us how you ended up being a student manager for that very first football team.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. Actually, I was a student at the then Florida Technological University, FTU, and Dr. Trevor Colburn had just made the announcement at the end of 1978 that UCF was going to be formed out of what used to be FTU. Mm-hmm. And as part of his vision, he wanted to start a football team for the university. So having been involved in several other sports at the university, I met Coach Don Jonas, and from there we proceeded on with the first season.
So what other sports were you involved in? Were you participating, or were you also a manager in other sports?
Actually a manager in other sports, the wrestlerette for the wrestling team, baseball, and basketball, and then I played intramural sports, but I was not a student athlete for the university. Okay, so then the football team gets into shape and gets started for that football season. How many managers were there on the team? There were 10 of us to start, 10 female managers. Actually, Coach Jonas started recruiting us in early '79 after the name change took effect, and UCF actually became a shelter for Hurricane David that year, where they housed some Patrick Air Force Base employees that came over. UCF served as a shelter for them, and Coach Jonas and the newly administrative staff recruited us as we worked providing food and other activities for the evacuees at UCF's campus.
And as a manager for the football team, tell us a little bit about the things that you guys did to help the team out.
Actually, we started as administrators. We helped out with secretarial duties. We assisted in public relations for the new upcoming football team and the program. But we also maintained the football equipment, helped out during the games. We prepped the locker rooms because, as you know, there were no uniforms to start and no stadium and no lockers, and we utilized the Tangerine Bowl for the first games that first year. So we basically assisted the coaches in their administrative duties and helped to maintain the equipment, setting up the locker rooms, etc.
And what kind of duties did you have on a game day?
On a game day, I had a really important duty. Besides assisting on the sidelines, I used to lace up the shoulder pads that would break. A long time ago, the equipment was a little different, so I would lace up the shoulder pads as they would get knocked off the players. I ran for the tee after kickoff onto the field. Somebody had to retrieve the tee, and then we also gave water breaks during the timeouts for the players and coaches as well.
And from the memories of those first teams, what stands out to you most importantly during that time?
Well, I think it was probably the excitement. UCF was known, of course, for its basketball, and it had All-Americans and athletes from all over. But football was kind of what ignited the Orlando community, and I think rallied around not only the name change from FTU to UCF, but it was just the excitement of what football did for the university, kind of like brought us to that next level, and how it kind of moved us from a commuter campus to something of a tradition, something that you could follow with the football team.
And as you worked with many of the players, I mean, I've asked a lot of them, what their memories are of certain plays that stand out. Now, you probably don't get to see a whole lot of the game as much as you're working, but are there any events during the seasons that you worked that stand out to you in particular?
Well, of course, the first game stands out. That was our game at St. Leo. That was the first ever game we played. Mm-hmm. And about 300 students and faculty traveled over to St. Leo for that game. So it was just really exciting to see how all the practices and everything came together, and how the team played in that first game. I guess the only other one that would stand out, of course, was an away game on the road, and it was one of the 2 losses that UCF suffered that first season. We did go 6-2. But every time the other team scored a touchdown, the opponent, they shot off this big cannon. And unfortunately, that was the game we lost, like 48-0. So we just remember this cannon going off every time the opponent scored. So not a good memory, but that's kind of sticks out as well.
And, I recall that there's a lot of characters that were on this football team. Anybody in particular stand out?
Oh, my gosh. It was 200 of them, I think, that showed up for tryouts on that first day in that lot filled with sand spurs, and there were no, uniforms and no pads and nothing, but I think I know they came from a variety of backgrounds, but Mike O'Shaughnessy was one that sticks out. Scrappy, local kid that came out. They had a lot of high school kids coming out. They had bartenders that showing up. I mean, it was just such this diverse group of people, more or less what I call a cast of unknowns. Mm-hmm. There's you just had your your high school stats behind you. Some of them were just walk-ons. Who else? There were so many of them. And then it got whittled down to there were actually about 80 on the first team from about that 200. Bugsy Engelberg was a coach that stood out under Jonas. He was quite a character on the field. He was something, and a coach that I think most of them found endearing. Of course, Mike Cullison, the first quarterback. Bob Ross, wide receiver. You could go on. Mike Staff, as we know, some that went on to be All-Americans, but I think they stand out quite a bit.
Yeah, so back during that time, I've asked all the players that we've had on this question as well. Did you really foresee where we are today back when all this was getting started?
No, not really. Like I said, it was a new program. It was a spark in the community. It was the next thing to propel UCF forward. I guess in the back of your mind, football is big. Football means a lot to a university. But I think when we were back in the day, it was just the excitement and getting a team and watching the community and the students of the university just kind of wrap their arms around football as a whole. But I don't think any of us could have ever envisioned 40 years ago stepping out onto that field and being, where we are today.
And let's talk about where we are today. Do you look at this and imagine, can you imagine having all the tools that they have now that you could have had back then when you were a manager?
Oh my gosh. Times they are a-changing, and boy, it is definitely different today. I mean, from an on-campus stadium, to high-tech plays, to coaching staff, to the caliber of the players. I mean, and after all these years, we've got scholar athletes and lettermen and All-Americans and, Hall of Famers and NFL stars, things like that. So I think it's come a long way from 40 years ago.
And you are still wearing your manager hat as you are working behind the scenes on the 40th reunion of the football team. Tell us a little bit about how that's going.
Well, that has been quite exciting. As you know, it's 40 years of UCF football, and UCF is going to be honoring the 1979 football team coaches and managers at the UConn game on Saturday, September 28th. So I have been busy working with UCF to track down those players and coaches from that first team, and they've got several exciting events that are happening. We are going to be honored at halftime on the field with a special presentation. They've got a special luncheon, and there's a weight room tour and practice with the current staff and meeting the coaches. So I think it's something that a lot of those players are going to look forward to because, like you said, a lot has changed over 40 years. So we're very excited and really happy that the university is basically honoring that first team that, started the momentum that moved it to where it is today.
And how tough your job would have been before the internet to try to get all this together, right?
Oh, boy, before cell phones and before the internet and before Facebook and all these other things, we'd probably be doing snail mail and trying to contact people's high schools and look them up through this. But it's obviously the technology is there. And UCF has kept some good records over the years, especially with their sports and athletes. So a lot of them are still season ticket holders. A lot of these people started at the beginning and still continue to this day. So we've been able to track them, or we see them at every game anyway. And then everybody knows everybody, and you just kind of track them down. But certainly the technology is easier now than it would have been even 10 years ago.
All right. So how many from the first team do we anticipate being there for the reunion?
There are a total of about 90, 80, and about 10 coaches. We have every coach besides the two that are deceased that will be joining us, and we have approximately 59 of the 80 people, several others deceased. So we have a good 2/3 of that team going to be with us on the field on the 28th.
Well, that is awesome, and a good job by you, and lots of hard work getting all that together. And we certainly look forward to that coming up with the 40th anniversary of UCF's football team. Hillary Arena, manager from that first team, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Jeff. Enjoyed it, and charge on.
Raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney is our commitment to you at Chad Bar Law. I'm Chad Bar, and as a UCF alum, I am proud to present Knightline at Night, Central Florida's only call-in show dedicated to our UCF Knights, every Tuesday at 9 p.m. And remember, if you or a loved one are injured in an auto accident, call us at 407-599-9036 to schedule your free consultation, or visit us at chadbarlaw.com. Offices Altamont Springs. Go Knights, charge on.
Thanks for joining us for this Knightline 79 Rewind, only on the Knightline Sports Network. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at UCF_Knightline, and you can follow me as well at JeffAllen_88. And please like and share all of our Knightline Sports Network programming on social media and where you get your podcast. For Knightline 79 Rewind, I'm Jeff Allen. Stay well and stay safe.